Heidi ho.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. How's it going?
It is going pretty good.
Yeah. Not too happy at
Yeah.
the weather, but oh well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be spring.
Seriously. It's cold. I don't like it.
Yeah, well,
And the snow doesn't help.
yeah. But despite that, I guess it makes it a very good day to do a podcast inside.
Absolutely, yeah. So what was your story?
Okay, so for those that are listening live or recorded, I let Coleson know that I have a story for him. So I write for the local student-run newspaper, and in that newspaper, uh, articles get put out about local events, national public or national political situations, such as I wrote an article on President Trump's second impeachment sham. I wrote articles that have been political in this paper before, and there are two editors in chief for the paper. One of them is pretty conservative, and he said to all of those, "You're good, you're fine, go ahead." The other one is hyper liberal. I can't even understand how she can be so liberal, especially since, from what I've heard, her family comes from Russia. So you would think she would completely oppose leftist ideas, but apparently not.
Or at least
Um,
understand the consequences.
yeah, or at least be able to say, oh, my parents or my grandparents or whoever escaped from the results of these ideologies. Maybe I shouldn't follow it. Um, but she's kind of resisted me on a bunch of political topics, but they've all gotten through, maybe with some minor changes that we worked out. But my most recent article that is coming in the upcoming issue of our newspaper is about how abortion was founded on racism.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Um, and it was a lot of interesting research, but I wrote this article on how abortion was founded on racism, and she predictably said, I don't like it. Well, in journalism, at least real journalism, that's not a way to just not have something in the paper. So she came up with a
Well,
reason. Huh?
I said, well, maybe not in real journalism. In the perfect world, that's how journalism would work. But when you take in the real world, Fox News, CNN, New York Times, crap like that, it's not really how it ends up being.
Yeah, they don't mind dropping something because they don't like it. But for my newspaper, she had to provide a reason, and so one of the reasons she provided was she didn't like the comparison I made between Margaret Sanger saying we should quote exterminate the Negroes and Hitler, who was trying to kill the Jews. She didn't like that, as well as a couple other things. So at this point, I've we've been going back and forth for I think 2 weeks now for this article, and I finally said, you know what, I'll put your changes in, and I put them in. They weren't like major changes, thankfully, and she still said no.
You
And
can't oppose
so
your own changes.
I know that's what I was thinking. So I finally said, you know what, I will take it to the head of the school. So I am completely overstepping her. The reason the journalism teacher can't just say you're good, put the article in, is because his official role is advisor. So he can't just say yes or no. He's there just to advise. So I'm right now. I sent an email, and I'm going to talk to the head of the school. Talk
That
to
sounds awesome.
Yeah, and be like, hey, listen, there's nothing in here that is wrong or unfactual, you should let me put it in the paper. So I'll give you an update, but it's very interesting because I have been crapping all over the altar of abortion, where they quite literally make blood sacrifices, and they those on the political left who agree with that don't really like it.
No, they don't. And I find it interesting how she's making you be really factual when you're, first off, you're being completely factual, and then second off, she doesn't like it when you're posting in an opinion section anyway.
Yeah, and I really tried to make it a non-opinion piece, and she still had problems with it.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty much, it doesn't even go to opinions anymore. It's like, oh, you believe in God? Well, you're just a faith-loving, opinionated person. It's like there's no such thing as just having your beliefs and not being opinionated anymore.
Yeah, that's true. All right,
Yep.
so that's
Well.
the story.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Sorry we were a little late there. Good story from Spencer to start off our day. This is Wake Up America Day 19. Pretty fast that we got to 19 already. And we are talking about communism today. We have done it before, but we're going to be talking in depth today. Has communism ever worked, and can it ever work? Like, can it work at all? Not just considering, can it work in other countries where it's at? Could it work in the U.S.? What could be changed to make it work, or is it even possible at all? So follow the show, share it with your friends, broadcast us around, and you guys are, talking to you guys is the reason why we like to do a live podcast format like this, and leave your comments, because that's the whole reason for a live that's the whole reason for live podcast. But please do keep them clean. Don't be profane or just spew unintelligent, just random stuff. If you're going to make a claim, back up with fact. You don't have to quote me the fact and from where it's at right here in the comment, but send it to me afterwards, if that's what you would like to do. So that's what I would say to start us off.
All right, yeah. So we're going to be talking about communism today. I figured it would be good just to start off with a base level understanding so that everyone who's listening can start off on the same sort of footing. So I went to Merriam-Webster and looked up the definition of communism, and it said a few things. One, it said a system in which goods are owned in common and are available to all. A theory advocating elimination of private property, and a doctrine based on revolutionary Marxian socialism and Marxism-Leninism that was the official ideology of the USSR.
Yep. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, pretty much as basic as it gets. So you leave your comments, guys, but right off the bat, I'm just going to give my opinion like I normally do on whatever topic we're doing. I believe communism is evil. It has not ever worked, and it will not ever work. I'm pretty sure Spencer feels the exact same way about that. So give us your comments and opinions. But until we start getting some comments, we'll go ahead and start going into it. So, yeah, I mean, first off, communism, in theory, in theory, like Spencer just described it there with the quoting from Merriam-Webster, communism essentially is the ideal that goods can be shared equally throughout a society with no division on class, race, sex, gender, preferences, yada, yada, yada. No division, perfect equality among everybody. There's no rich, there's no poor. There's just working for the government, works purely for the good of the people, and, kind of like that. So when I think of communism, first off, I think the idea might sound kind of interesting, if not for the fact that humans are naturally unequal and different in every single way. So it's completely improbable, and I'm not even sure I'd want to live in a society like that. But also, it represents sort of like a utopian society, which should be known that utopia's Greek root word is essentially just a place that can never exist.
Yeah. I actually read the book where that word came from, utopia. The book is actually called Utopia, and it's amazing because the guy who's writing it is imagining this perfect idealized place where everyone shares everything. And then, even though the author wanted that to happen in the book, he basically says, but this will never happen because this is not fairyland.
Yeah, exactly. Think of like The Giver. That's essentially what communism reaches for, except, well, that's what communism in an ideal reaches for. The individuals and organizations who are actually behind any group of communism, whether it's the Chinese Communist Party or whether it was the USSR or any other communist group in the whole world, realizes that the ideal of communism is not the reality of communism, and it is essentially, I would say, probably the most corrupt system in the entire world. And I say that because, and keeping in mind things like monarchies or stuff like that, corruption is, based usually off of like lies, cheating, stealing, and crap like that. I would rather have someone, um, okay, let's say I'd rather have someone mistreat me to my face and be honest about it than go behind my back and me have to figure out what it is they're doing. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I guess that's where I kind of come from that. I'm not saying I'm a fan of monarchies, but still, um, I would say it's probably preferable to communism. Let's go back to feudalism instead of communism. Um,
Well, even in a system of monarchy, um, there's still some sort of structure which people in that sort of system, there were knights and nobles who had to prove themselves to get into positions, whereas communism is set up so that communism is amazing in the fact that it restricts any desire to improve yourself. Because if you are in a capitalist society such as America, um, you look at the free market, and the free market says that if you have a product or if you work really hard, you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to make connections, you're going to be rewarded for your work. Whereas in communism, communism says we are all equal and we're going to make sure we're all equal. And we're going to do that by eliminating um, any differences. And so it doesn't matter if I work 60 hours a week as a doctor, I'm stressed out of my mind because, I'm trying to save people, or the guy down the street is working as a trash man. We're going to get paid the same. We're going to get the same benefits no matter what. And so, as that doctor, I don't want to improve myself. Or even maybe if I'm looking at becoming a doctor, I'm not going to go into that field because I'm going to get the same benefits or the same level of income as someone with a less skilled job. So, why would I improve myself and go through all the time to improve myself when I could just lay around and still get paid?
Absolutely, that's a perfect point. It honestly, if you think about it in terms of how Spencer's referred to it and how I referred to it earlier, communism actually represents more of like the most unequal possible form of government and economy that is possible. And I think communism is a little weird. Just real quick side note in terms of for instance, people compare communism to capitalism. Capitalism is an economical system. It's not really a government system. Um, that would be like democracy for the United States. It's a democratic republic. Um, but communism is weird in the fact that it takes the form of both an economical system and a form of government, because it sets up a government that rules over a class and tries to promote the most equality. So that's what's kind of weird about it.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing because you always hear the argument that communism can work, it just hasn't worked in the past. Communism can work, it just hasn't worked in the past. And then you look at it and you remember the Albert Einstein quote, which says something along the lines of, if you do the same thing expecting it, or the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine like eating a stick of dynamite while it's lit, and then one person dies, and another person dies, and another person dies, and another, and yet you still think you're the one person who's not going to die when you eat that stick of dynamite.
Right, because you're different.
Yeah, because you're different, or you somehow have a different way of using the dynamite in order to make it not actually hurt you, which obviously that's complete insanity, which is the definition almost. I would say communism should have a synonym for insanity, because people keep doing it and expecting a different result. The result every single time, every time, okay, without fail, that communism has become the governing and economical system of a country is large amounts of death, complete poverty and inequality, corruption on some of the most grandest scales ever seen in history, and I already said, yeah, murders and death. Okay, murders and death highlight that. Okay, if no one else wants to say it, they say maybe okay, we can make it work. Okay, obviously you can't make it work when you take into fact that more people have died. What was that? Oh my gosh, it was the statistic. More people died from communist countries than all the deaths of World War II combined.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, let me check on that. I know the USSR alone killed over 100,000 people, or maybe it's 100
Oh yeah.
million. I think it was 100 million.
In total, I believe there have been about 100 million deaths from communism worldwide.
Yep.
So
1 second.
it's
I'm getting the exact statistics on this. I have it recorded in this over here. Okay,
no
here we go.
problem.
Yep, recorded. This is coming from the Black Book of Communism. The number of people killed by communist governments amounts to more than $94 million. Or not dollars. 94 million. The statistics of victims include. Go away. Sorry, little side person in the background. Statistics of victims include deaths through executions, man-made hunger, famine, war, deportations, and forced labor. Forced labor, you can crack that up to things like Russian or Soviet Union gulags and crap like that, which they still have today.
Right.
Or you can crack it up to the millions of individuals committed against genocide by the Chinese government just recently that our
Yeah.
current president has actually defended, the Uyghurs.
As a cultural difference.
Yep.
And that statistic, the 94 million, does not include people that fought against communism. Those are just innocents who have died because of communism. So if you include people that have fought, and I'm sure that 94 million is a conservative estimate because, we can't really know how many people have died from it. I guarantee you over 100 million people have been killed by communism.
Oh yeah, just the same as how throughout the coronavirus, China and Russia have done a good job, especially China has done a good job of keeping their statistics hidden from the rest of the world. We don't exactly know what's going on over there. It's hard to figure out the numbers. So how hard do you think it would be if they were to deport or hurt a family or an individual, or let's just say they just took out a small business or a small town? They could do it, and no one would blink an eye. Obviously, no one blinks an eye because literally the president of the United States of America, Joseph Biden, said it's a
Yep.
cultural norm that we need to accept. I'm going to go back just so you guys are aware. I'll be referring to that several times in this show because that infuriates me.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, if it infuriates you too, leave a reaction so we know that you're agreeing with us. If you don't agree with us, leave comments. Please leave comments. That's what we love about stereo. It allows us to interact with you. And if you don't leave comments, the show's not as interesting because we're not able to get as many opinions into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, leave your comments, guys. Keep them clean, keep them active, and yeah, leave comments. I don't know, not a lot to say about that. But continuing on, I mean the communism, and talk about communism in the United States. That we've covered how bad communism is. I know personally, my dad, he used to work as was a night shift custodial manager at a local university, and while he was working on references just recently, actually, um, another show I
Oh
did,
yeah, sure.
he was at an elevator in one of the buildings that he was managing, and he met two professors. One of them was an English professor. One of them was a history professor. They were a couple, married, and they were wearing communist shirts, sickle and hammer. And he asked them, what do you think about communism? What's your opinions there? Um, Him being a history professor and knowing the effects of communism, because they're in the history books, unless the history books have been edited, um, he said that he believes that communism is the solution to all that is wrong with the world, and that he and his wife had the solution to why communism didn't work, and they refused to share it with my dad, but they said they had the solution, and that they just knew how to change it. So, AKA, they were claiming that can communism work? Yes, according to them. So, I mean, disturbing and obviously completely wrong, but that's still their claim.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Looks like we're getting some good messages.
Yeah, thank you guys for leaving your comments.
Yeah, do you want to play those, or we can move on to some other points?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take those comments real quick, and I will bring up the document that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
My best friend's mom has told me a true story about her mother escaping from Russia, communist Russia, with her family back in the day. It's a very interesting, hair-raising story of how they escaped and could have very easily been killed had they been caught, which they almost were. So I guess my point is, if communism is so wonderful, why are there bread lines for hours? Why are people desperately trying to risk their lives to escape from communist countries?
Oh yeah, totally true. In North Korea, you'll see um, little small boats and rafts that will try to like escape from the country into the surrounding area, into the surrounding water, because they can't even cross the border. It's just practically a wall, or maybe it actually is a wall. And so they literally, like, they'll get in boats and they'll try to escape, and North Korean ships, like military ships, will come through and gun the ships down and kill everyone in them. They'll literally, if you're found trying to escape from North Korea, they'll kill you.
Sounds like a place I'd love to visit. Oh
I
wait,
say
Bernie
escape because it is an escape. If you're held there, that's a prison. If you're not allowed to leave.
and Bernie Sanders took a vacation or his honeymoon in the USSR.
Wow, what a totally reliable person to have in our government.
I know. But yeah, there you go. The results and the actions of people who have experienced communism firsthand should give you a good indication of how communism works and whether it is a good thing. If you have people um, like that friend you were talking about, that or that friend's mom, that are trying to escape and are risking their lives just to escape, if I were to risk my life for anything, it would not be to escape a utopian paradise. It would be to escape a horrible, essentially prison country, which is exactly what these places are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. North Korea being, I think, probably maybe not the most brutal. Honestly, I don't. The statistics are very confusing in terms of, especially communist countries like China and North Korea, because they're very good at keeping their secrets, or at least they just don't share their information with the rest of the world. They're not a freedom of the press like it is here in America, where the rest of the world knows about stuff that happens here because we have news stations and places like that, and the freedom of the press that can speak about it, and then everyone knows about it. So it's different. And obviously, we have our secrets too, but it's not like everything that you see in communist countries. We do have one more comment. We'll go ahead and take that real quick and then get into this document. You guys are going to be surprised, to say the least.
Yeah.
I like communism on paper. I agree with it on paper. I haven't seen any examples of it like being successfully implemented, and I'm not sure if. But like, it's also never been given a chance, because like, anytime any country becomes communist or is communist, then the U.S. comes in to destabilize the government because they don't want the spread of communism. Like, if it was bound to fail anyway, then just let it fizzle out and fail. Like,
Okay, so I'm going to argue against the fizzle out, let it fail. And the reason I argue against that is because, yes, it's going to fail, and it's going to fail far more quickly than a less communist government. But at the same time, people are suffering while it's failing. That 100 million statistic, people that have died from communism, is people that have died. It doesn't count the uncountable millions upon millions who have suffered being put in prison camps or starvation, or have faced all these horrors because of communism. So I would say that there is no way that we can just let communism sit and quote unquote be given a chance, because it already has been given a chance. Russia and China have been trying this form of government for a long time, and it has only resulted in terrible results for their people, death. The only reason China was able to pull itself out of terrible poverty and some of the worst famines it has experienced is because it turned towards a more capitalist way of doing economics. That's the only reason. And then I understand what you say, that communism is nice on paper, right? Everyone's equal, everyone's happy. That has never really appealed to me, because everyone is equal, yes, but at the same time, communism states that everyone should end up equal, not start off equal. Everyone should end up with the same pay or end up with the same amount of food. Whereas I think with capitalism, it really allows people to expand what they know and what they can do outside of a preset determined end goal that they have to meet.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for instance, think of it. A doctor isn't getting the same education that like a trash truck driver is, but communism on paper says that they should pay the same and be, valued the same. They should start the same. Yes, every race is equal. Each gender is equal. Sorry. Oh gosh. Both genders are equal. Every race is equal. Both genders are equal. Stuff like that. That's true. Everyone starts off the same, but then you go different into, how you end up. Like Spencer said perfectly, you can end differently. So if I work all my life and someone decides that they aren't going to work at all, they're just going to do the minimum it takes to survive through life, then that's totally fine. That is their choice. I don't care about their choice. I'm talking about me. So if they decide that's what they want to do, that's up to them. And also communism on paper, where you say that works. I'd like you to do a little more research into communism. Maybe go read Karl Marx' journal, because obviously you haven't read the whole thing. Communism on paper, while it does say in a lot of summaries and definitions, and we've already said it here today a couple times, that communism represents equality and a utopian society where everyone's equal, gets paid equal, lives equal. First off, obviously hasn't worked. Second off, on paper, physically on paper, that actually isn't what it says. Karl Marx literally quotes in his journals saying that he felt like he was inspired by literally Satan. He literally says, "I felt like I was inspired by Satan," in his journals, essentially praising the devil for guiding his hand. Now, I don't care if you are the most anti-Christian person in the world. Anyone with an ounce of common sense, especially those who live in America and you see TV shows or crap like that in media, and the devil universally represents bad stuff and evil. And for someone to say, I felt like the devil guided my hand, and then from his journal that says that a very influential form of government and like such as communism, which yes, communism came from that, is very disturbing. Not only that it exists, but that anybody still supports it. So do a little more research into that. Come back with some of that information, because you'll actually see when you read these journals that communism on paper does not actually say equality.
Right. All right.
Yep. Go ahead and take
Like,
your message.
yeah, Brian's left some more
You
messages.
use the devil like this is supposed to be some type of deterrent for me. I'm atheist, agnostic, whatever. I don't really care about religion, and I don't care for religious arguments.
So
Yeah, obviously he left a message before I kept going. So listen to the
Well,
whole thing
and-
before you respond.
And Coleson, you've said this before, but I'll tell Brian and anyone else listening. Satan is generally considered the sign of evil, whether you're religious or even if you are religious but not Christian. Satan is still seen as the bad guy, the sign or the symbol of evil.
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you, Spencer. I said that just like 30 seconds ago, but he obviously left a message before he heard it. So I'll go ahead and take next message. Thank you, Ryan, for your messages, and anyone else, please leave comments. Let's get the conversation going.
Tell me to do my research, but you also say equality. I don't want equality. I want equity.
Okay, so that's actually okay. Equity is terrible for everyone and everything. The reason is that equality is the ability to have everyone start at the same place. So equality is freeing the slaves and giving women the right to vote so that they can all start at the same place. And if me and Coleson start at the same place and I make good decisions, I get farther ahead of him. That we both started at the same place. We both had the same potential, and we just came out differently. Equity is one of the things that communism seeks. Equity is having equal outcomes. So it doesn't matter if I've trained for a marathon and Coleson has been eating potato chips for 2 weeks. If we start that race and I get to the finish line 5 minutes before him, we'll both still get awarded first place. So equity is equality of outcome, and it is a horrible thing for those who want to actually achieve something with their life.
It's like a participation trophy on life.
Yeah.
I hate participation trophies. Essentially, it's just participation trophies. It's always seemed lame to me. Whether you're doing things like Pinewood Derby or you're running a race in your schoolyard, those who try hard will succeed. Those who don't try hard will not succeed. If I put in a ton of time and research and effort into trying to make the best car and it doesn't work, that's life. In adulthood, in reality, and I think this is a big thing, and I'm just going to say it straight up because I think this is a big thing that plagues, especially the United States, but probably other places in the world. And I would say it is probably the entire reason behind things like equality with LGBTQ, the LGBTQ organization, things like why people support communism. And that's simply people don't want to grow up. Okay. And to expound upon that,
Sure.
As a kid, especially in modern schools, we're taught everyone's equal. You get a participation trophy for trying, or you just don't get any trophies at all because that way everyone's equal, right? You get good, even though we still have the grade system, which says that if you work hard, you get rewarded for it. Oh well. The culture that's portrayed is everyone is equal. Don't be angry at anyone. Just be neutral. We're all fair, equal. There's no one better than anyone else. Okay. And that's not reality, and that's not adulthood. Anyone who believes that is still living like a 5-year-old child. Communism is essentially the government, when you talk about it in terms of equality, which isn't what it actually is on paper, is essentially the government of a 5-year-old child at school who gets angry because someone beat him, okay? You're saying, I want to sit on my butt all day, do the minimum, and that person over there, they're gonna be a doctor. They're gonna go to college for 8 years, and they're gonna come back. I don't even have to do one day of high school or any education at all. I don't even have to be literate. But you know what? We're gonna live in the same kind of house. We're gonna have the same income, and we're gonna have the same say in absolutely everything because that's what I believe in. Okay, that's like using welfare to make your entire income because you don't want to work or something like that. So take it into account. I think that's also the same thing, like I said just a minute ago, with the LGBTQ. People don't understand that adulthood is different from a little childhood in high school where you say, I want to be equal to everyone, and then they say, okay, totally, that's fine. Reality is you need to suck it up and deal with it. When someone insults you, turn your cheek and walk away. When you don't succeed, try again. That was the reason that phrase exists. When you don't succeed, try again. Try not do. People who give up or who just stop trying or aren't willing to put into the effort, you shouldn't be rewarded for it. So things like equity or communism in general, I'd say absolutely no to it every single time, both on it, in terms of realism. What is it actually represented in the past? What is it? What is it on paper? What is it in ideology? Everything about communism is bad. I think equality in terms of both genders, uno, dos, because there are two genders, and then in terms of each race is where the line should stop. There is equality for those people. Anyone given more or less becomes unequal. So let's say I live in a poor neighborhood and everyone's just going to hand me out, let's say, $5,000. Well, the individual who didn't live in a poor neighborhood, who still had to work themselves to the bone in order to earn their money, they didn't get the $5,000 handout, right? Now, in America, I would say that there are different solutions to this problem. But my parents personally, they came from pretty low standards. For the first couple of years of their marriage, they lived in trailer parks that were full of just tiny trailers. Mobile homes. Mobile homes trailers, pretty much same. And they lived in one bedroom with a tiny little kitchen. Bugs were crawling over their counters constantly, infected and totally unsanitary. My parents came from that, and you know what? I live in an amazing, I think we have like 5,000 or 7 or 6,000 square feet right now. Something like that.
Wow.
My parents worked themselves to the bone every single day of their lives to make my life and the life of my siblings better so that we could grow up in this amazing house and with my amazing parents. But the individuals who there are some who are just unable to bring themselves out of a poor condition because they don't know how. But if you want to, and you know what, I can't represent all situations in this, so I'm just going to stop right there. Actually, I'm not even going any further with that because there is so much nuance to poverty. I mean, for instance, if you live in poverty in like most of America, you can work yourself out of that. Poverty in places like democratic cities or slums like that, it's a totally different situation. Some individuals there are never even exposed to how to better themselves because the system is completely destroyed and rigged against them. So obviously I don't support that stuff, but in terms of communism, equality and just screaming equality is not always the best thing.
Well, and you made a lot of good points, and I'll add on to that unfortunately communism appeals mostly to those who are not naturally industrious. Me and Coleson, we spend a lot of time working on our schooling or personal projects rather than simply sitting and playing video games. Now, I'm not saying video games are bad or evil or anything, but we are productive with our time. And we actually work ourselves up. We work our skills level up past what they were. And unfortunately, communism appeals to those who aren't willing to do that and those who are kind of more inherently lazy, because it says that, okay, listen, you're lazy, and Coulson over here, he's worked, he's gotten a lot better at, say, woodworking or forging or whatever the skill may be, but you, who was not industrious and didn't put forth your time and effort into developing your skills, we're still going to give you about the same thing as what Coulson has, because you deserve it.
Yeah, and in reality, first off, it doesn't even work like that. So also, that's where I attribute that part of communism. People talk about that. That's the common idea. Okay, that's the common idea behind communism. The real ideal behind communism is what's on paper, which is in Karl Marx journals, and in reality, it reflects Karl Marx journals and not the commonly known ideal of communism, which is inequality, death, destruction, and poverty. Yeah, poverty.
Yeah, and I will add a great line that really sums up how you should think about communism versus capitalism, and that is that intentions matter less than results. So I can intend to give Coulson $1,000, but if the result is that Coulson only ends up with $100 because maybe I lost 900 or I decided to keep it for myself or whatever it may be, then the result is that Coulson had $100. It may be nice that I wanted to give him 1,000, but he only has 100 at the end of the day. So you need to look at the results of any system, whether that's government or economic, or I mean anything even on a smaller scale, and you just need to look at the results rather than what it says, because anyone can say anything, but fewer people can do things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Brian left some more messages. So real quick, guys, leave messages in our comments today. We've said a lot, made some claims that are some people might consider crazy and completely unrealistic, or some people might not like it all. So those of you listening live, leave your comments. If you're listening to the recording, send me and Spencer, send me a message on Instagram, or listen to our next show. Yeah, go ahead and take next comment.
Okay.
It's crazy how y'all don't want to give credit where credit's due. Yes, these quote unquote lower performing jobs might not need might not need as much training, but society needs them to continue. So I feel like they should be given the same respect, because when shit hit the wall and COVID started getting real fucking bad, um, doctors, fast food workers, trash collectors, they were all put under the same category of essential.
So we do appreciate keeping comments clean on this. You probably came in after we said that, but we do appreciate clean comments. Anyone that's listening, and yes, I disagree with some of the things that people put that government officials put under the absolutely necessary list. I think a lot of things on there were just dumb.
Yeah,
And
fast food workers are not essential workers.
right. And yes, we may need trash workers to take our trash, or we may need, people to perform tasks that help society function. Yes, we need them. But at the same time, the person who comes and picks up your trash, while he performs a good job that is necessary, he also didn't have to go to school for 8+ years to get a degree in medicine.
Yeah, with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because he did that.
Right. So he's getting paid less, perhaps, but it's you have to look at the whole equation. There are people who are brain surgeons who make much, much, much more money than I think I could ever hope to obtain, because I'm not going to go into that field. But they've also done so much more study and so much more work and put so much more money behind what they're trying to do. And
Exactly. Yeah.
personally, I don't think a guy dressed up as an ice cream cone is essential, and that actually was a real essential job, quote unquote, that was allowed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not going to judge anything off of essential. It means pretty much nothing to us. We do respect and we absolutely love our police officers, emergency response doctors, all those nurses, those people. Yeah, we absolutely have just the utmost respect for them, and that's why we say there is when you say in communism we had need. Let me say again, the commonly consumed ideal of communism, which is equality, which isn't the real ideal of communism. Um, that is, for me, I look at that as insanity because, uh, simply because doctor, like we said, besides the fact that they work 8+ years, a doctor literally has to memorize an obscene amount of information, be able to handle tons and tons of different situations, and be able to literally care, fix, repair, whatever you want to put the human body and all its complexities. Meanwhile, if you're going to say that communism should exist so we can give doctors and trash workers the same pay, obviously that's not everything you're saying, but if that's the example you're going to use, that makes no sense at all, because that trashman could literally be a high school dropout who didn't have what it took to make it through high school, but this individual is a doctor who saves lives, spent 8 years, went all the way through high school, spent 8 years in college, probably did even more special education after that, and now works in a high-stress job every single day of their life versus the guy who just walks down the street, takes bags of trash, throws them in the back of a trash can, and every once in a while hits compact on the back of the truck.
Well, and on top of that, it's not like trash men or other truly essential services that help society function. It's not like people are disrespectful. People are pretty respectful of the trash people who take the trash, because that's not a job they want to do. But the case still remains that someone who goes to college for a long time has spent so much more time and money on their degree than someone who may get a lower paying job.
Yeah, even just taking out college out of that, just talking about, literally just doing the job itself, high stress, saving people's lives, low stress, chill job, scooping trash. Not even,
Yeah,
not even a comparison. I
yes.
respect them both because I don't want to do trash, but I don't. It's still not even a comparison.
Yeah, for those of you that are listening that think we're crapping on trash men, we're not. We respect them. We just really appreciate those who are willing to take the time to learn highly skilled jobs.
Yeah. And just a quick side note, everyone. Please leave comments. For instance, Brian's leaving a couple here. Leave comments more like claims, evidence. Opinions are totally fine and welcome. But if you're going to start to create an argument, start to back it up. But yeah, we respect comments and we enjoy them. So please leave them if you're listening.
Yeah. All right. We do have a couple more from Brian. We can take those and then move on to your document, because oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, we'll go and take these real quick.
Yeah, we're not meeting eye to eye on anything. I'm a big believer in ACAB. There are cops who do bad things, and then there are cops who allow other cops to do bad things. So personally, I say F the police.
I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure how that was related.
Yeah, that was kind of unrelated, but let me just cover this and just take like a couple minutes, just like 1 or 2 minutes here, real quick. Let's set up a scenario real quick, okay? So let's say, how do I want to say this? Okay, let's say you're in a gas station, okay, and you're standing there This dude comes in, walks up with a gun to the cash register, and tells the person at the register to give you everything inside. Give the person, give the robber everything inside the drawer. Right? He's robbing a store. Okay. Are you responsible for that robber's choices if you don't hurt, stop, or do anything to stop him before he walks out the door and get away? Okay. Now, I believe there might be a moral obligation. For instance, an officer who sees someone kneeling on his neck and doesn't do anything, even though the officers in George Floyd's case actually did do something and told him to stop repeatedly. There are corrupt officers, just like there are corrupt politicians. There's corruption in everything. There are just bad apples. Okay, so to paint everything with a broad brush is the exact opposite of the definition of equality that you have spoken about several times. It's the definition of equity. It is the opposite of everything that you are consuming about communism. Okay, communism's commonly consumed ideal is equality. To say all cops are evil, and I'm not even going to say what you say, but you said screw the police, right? To say that is to paint with a broad stroke. That's like saying everyone straight is evil, everyone white is evil, everyone black is evil, everyone everyone who is Christian is evil, every conservative is evil, every Donald Trump supporter is evil. Yeah, and this is the same group that you guys consistently talk about promoting inequality and talking about how you need to respect an individual, except that you guys are probably, actually, no, not even going to say probably, you guys without a doubt are the group that paints with a broad brush higher than any others. This is liberals, okay? Especially more further left-wing liberalism, okay? Painting with a broad brush is not good, okay? Keep into mind the groups that are smaller. For instance, me and Spencer have talked about poverty in terms of working yourself out of it. I do absolutely acknowledge that there are individuals who are incapable of working themselves out of it. Just like how in the Black Lives Matter riots last summer, I acknowledge absolutely that there were individuals in there who are not part of the evil Black Lives Matter organization and who are just strung in on it. But at the same time, I do also absolutely acknowledge that Black Lives Matter is evil, that there are bad cops, and that people are just sometimes bad. That's just how it is. So, yeah, don't paint with a broad brush. Yeah, we'll take your last comment real quick here, but I hope he has something more to say than just another opinion.
Sure.
You guys might disagree with me, but I don't see China and North Korea as true communist countries. China, it's got like these weird pockets of capitalism. Communism hasn't been properly implemented in these places. So even though they're communist in name, it's very whatever to me.
So
Okay.
You're right that China is this weird combination between communism and capitalism sometimes. But you can look at the prosperity of China compared to the prosperity of America and see that even though they allow capitalism, the fact that they don't allow full capitalism, they still hold on to these authoritarian ideas, and they still try to subject Hong Kong to them, and they still try to, and succeed a lot of the time, to punish their people. Shows that the results, even of this mixed version, is still not as good as just straight capitalism.
Yeah, talk about, in terms of capitalism in America versus China. Just cover that. Okay, well, first off, North Korea, real quick. North Korea is like a communist totalitarian mix. And when you say there's no such thing as pure communism, like I said earlier, communism is kind of weird because it's like a government system, but it's also an economical system. It's more. If you look at an economics book, they're going to talk about it as an economical system, but it also mixes in with government. So it's kind of like in that weird, funky place. So technically, anybody who has a communist economy is practicing true communism, since communism doesn't actually set up a government. But let it be known, communism itself can never actually exist, and I do believe this can never actually exist fully, because communism promotes such corruption that a true, equal, it could literally exist for all of 5 minutes, and then someone would be taking advantage of it.
Yeah. And communism, this is one of the major things that people just either don't realize or don't talk about. And that is that communism is based off the assumption that all human beings are inherently good. And that assumption is wrong because if you, as Christians, me and Coleson believe that the natural man is an enemy to God. Humans are naturally evil and
Imperfect.
right, imperfect, and are naturally inclined to selfishness, etc. And so we have to work to be selfless or to improve ourselves and not just and help others. So communism starts off with the assumption that everyone is good, and because everyone is good, then everyone will just share everything equally and everything will be fine. And if that were true, if humans truly were born perfect and born um, and lived good without any natural basis for selfishness or for corruption, then in that case, I suppose communism could possibly work. But communism does not work because human beings are naturally flawed and naturally selfish and naturally inclined towards things that do not make communism work.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, I'm not sure if he's even still on here anymore. For those listening, he just brought in he brought up communism and talked about how he supported it on paper. Obviously, he didn't know what it was on paper because on paper it actually is the opposite of equality. Communism as a commonly consumed idea, and I'm just saying this because I see a bunch of new people in here. As a commonly consumed ideology, talks about how communism is the promotion of equality. That's the commonly consumed. The real ideal and the on paper version of communism is actually the opposite of equality. It actually straight up promotes corruption. And in reality, every time that communism has existed, it has promoted corruption. So just something for 2 cents. He also didn't give any actual evidence to support his claims, just a bunch of opinions.
Yeah, so let's take these messages until about 4 and then we can move on.
Yep, I'm dying to share that document. It's going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
China has been communist since 1945. Just how many years does Biolinus thinks it takes for them to get it perfect? I would think if communism was so great, they'd have gotten it by now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long does it take? And hey, Overthinker, didn't see you on here, man. Good to have you. Go ahead and take your comments right off the bat. Some nice timing.
Hey guys, great topic. I don't think people talk about communism enough, quite frankly, or collectivism as a whole and the dangers it presents. So, my theory about why people make the cognitive error of supporting communism is because when someone's ponders what would be the most ideal system to have, right? They make the cognitive error of situating themselves hypothetically as the one in control. And so if you do that, if you put yourself in the hypothetical as the person in control, well, then obviously you would conclude that communism is the best system, right? Because communism benefits primarily only the person or people in control. And so I think that's a cognitive error people are making, especially young people, when they feel that they're communists or whatnot. Hold on, one message.
All right.
Sorry, and this growing call for communism or collectivism, I should say, because it's a broader umbrella. It is the result of people being indulged with the spoils of the free market system. So because people are used to experiencing excess and being indulged and every whim and every desire they have being immediately met, they fail to realize the only reason that they have those things is because they are living within a capitalistic system. Once people are living under a communist system, they immediately try to escape it because it's inherently systemically oppressive. It necessarily has to subjugate individuals. So, hold on, another message.
All right.
Sorry. So, really, and again, this is an intellectual error people make. Capitalism, the free market system, is the absence of, it's the vacancy of a government intervening in free exchange, free trade, and the pricing mechanism between a provider of a service, a product or service, and the recipient of that product or service. Right? It's removing any kind of government public intervention into that process. And that's why it's superior, because it's not forcing anything on anyone. It's just allowing things to naturally happen. Communism, collectivism is the opposite, right? It's the perpetual adversarial intervention between individuals freely exchanging products or services. And so that's why it's inherently more evil and inherently more oppressive. So I can make a few more points about it, but I'll let others talk.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I like a lot of what you said, and shoot, I forgot my point.
I'm not sure I could have said it any better if I had written it down as a speech and recited it 100 times. That was perfect. You made every bullet point and you hit them all in perfect succession with perfect points. So thank you. Yes. Individuals who, especially in me and Spencer's generation, younger, who believe in communism, they're taking for granted the things of capitalism that simply do not exist in communism, and saying, well, we want to take this and we're just going to create equality with everyone, and so we're just going to create communism. We're just going to support that because that's what makes sense. And that's where I talk about the commonly consumed ideology of communism is equality. The practiced version of communism, the on paper, the Karl Marx version of communism, is inequality and oppression and corruption. Literally on paper, he just talks about it. Okay, talks about devil worship, talks about Satan. Like me and Spencer have said before already in this episode, if you don't believe in Satan, that is totally okay. I'm not saying you have to be religious, but Satan is a universally recognized bad guy. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like saying that you like Thanos, right? Who likes Thanos?
Well,
He's the bad guy. Satan's the bad guy. And it's just universally recognized. Karl Marx literally said in his journals, I feel like I was inspired by Satan to write this and to create this. As a religious person, I believe he was inspired by Satan totally, because it was just pure evil. Communism presents, think of like pure propaganda and then turn it into a government form of system. Communism presents the ideology, and we're going to talk about this here in just a minute. After just these commentary here, we're going to bring out our document we've been talking about today. Communism presents the ideal of equality, the ideal of everyone being equal, of a perfect utopian society like the Giver, which I don't think is a utopian society, but some people might. But that's the ideal that this presents. It presents that, high tech, everyone's equal, we're all existing the same kind of society, and that's what the image it puts in everyone's brains. Reality is gulags, poverty, living in 3 families to a 10 square foot room kind of society. That's what it actually is in reality. Corruption, evil, murders, deaths, that's the kind of society that communism actually has in practice.
And I like what Overthinker said. He kind of said another version of the grass is greener on the other side. People that live in capitalist societies, they have all the benefits of the capitalist society. And if they don't do a bunch of research and they don't realize, okay, communism has led to some pretty messed up stuff in the past 100 years, then the grass is greener on the other side. Everyone can, right? It's almost like a rainbow slogan going across the sky. Everyone can be equal. And if you're in a capitalist society looking at communism, you see that you have bills to pay, and you see that people aren't making the same amount of money, and you think, sure, that looks pretty good. I wouldn't mind everyone being equal. But as soon as you get to that other side, you realize, oh, my grass was pretty green to start with, and this grass is kind of just dead. So it's a situation of the grass is greener on the other side, and not knowing that the grass is dead on the other side. People don't know the facts about communism, and a lot of that is because of our education system, which has really shoved away from communism.
Yeah, we're going to about that in the document real quick, but we'll go ahead and take these, Spencer, before we get into that, because that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Take these real quick here.
All right.
Thank you, Lady B, and thank you for coming on today. I'm glad to see you guys. Glad to see you here.
Yeah, glad.
The most recent country to really succumb to communism has been Venezuela, because Venezuela, up until Hugo Chavez, it was probably, I think it was either like the fourth most richest country in South America. And it had, I think it was the second biggest in terms of oil reserves outside of the Middle East. And it literally once Chavez got in, and I think that was back in like 2000. And for the last 20 years, the people there are literally starving. I tend to call it's almost like trickle up poverty almost, because all of the power and it's almost like all the people are like their subjects. And it's like you're rationed out things. It's not a good look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you have a government who's responsible, who on paper, like I said, comedy consumed, their responsibility or their moral obligation is to, and pretty much just essentially the authority they're given, is that they are allowed to distribute the wealth, food, land, resources of an entire country. No matter how many people or how big the country is, you are left with nothing but the most that is more corrupt and more oppressive, I would even say, than something like a straight up feudalistic monarchy, because they literally will just do that. Or actually, you know what? Maybe let's not say more than let's say the same as. Think about it. Okay, you have except that it's just with different individuals, usually controlled by one main, such as in a country like North Korea, which talks about being communist but presents a government of totalitarianism. China, which is like a funky, weird communist capitalist mix, and their government is some kind of funky in between. Communism just promotes the easiest way to complete control of a country, and the best part about communism is everyone supports you, or maybe not everyone, but people will support you doing it because they don't realize what they're heading for is an extreme oppression when they have a better option.
Yeah, and Venezuela was a very fast-growing country at the time with a lot of natural resources, and now they have to wait in line to get stuff. It's amazing how quickly communism can take a great thing, took a great country with so many resources, and now people in that country have to go to extreme means in order to live.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 5 more comments, guys, so we might not take every one of them, just because we're trying to get to this document we've been talking about today, but we will try to take as many as we can.
We can run through a couple real quick.
Yep.
Oh my god. Okay. The guy talks about capitalism, about how it has the absence of a governing body and how it doesn't force anything. So with true capitalism...
Okay. I'm just going to cut him off right there. Capitalism, he didn't say it cuts out it. He didn't say that it removes a governing body. Governing body obviously still exists, but he was making the comparison with communism about how communism essentially just promotes complete government interference, whereas capitalism removes a lot of government interference. You still have things such as, you have regulations on how you can run your business, health code if you're a restaurant, stuff like that. Maybe you have just taxes, maybe tariffs, regulations, and stuff like that. You still have that stuff, but it doesn't give control of your business at a whim to government and just hope for the best. So that's the difference that he was talking about. That's why I just cut him off. Just making more claims. We have one more comment from you, Brian. We'll go ahead and take it. But keep in mind, I might turn off.
All right.
And when capitalism goes rampant, then it allows people to have monopolies. Where's your choice then?
I do dislike monopolies, such as, we're kind of getting up on some monopolies. Actually, that's not true. We do have monopolies such as Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, places like this that are just kind of monopolizing as much as they can. They really should be broken up. I do completely agree with that. But yeah, that does represent a problem, but that's not really what we're talking about. But same point.
And there are some laws against that. Maybe they should be stricter. But I think if the option is to have a free society with some monopolies or a communist society, I'm going with the free society. I may not like monopolies, and there are definitely things that are bad about monopolies that can be addressed, but when compared to communism, at least it's not communism.
It's literally like an actual utopia compared to communism.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
There's another document that I want to bring to your attention, to the both of you. And I would like to bring this up because I think I was on your podcast last time, and I had mentioned about the 45 points of the Communist Manifesto. This particular one is from venusproject.org. And it's actually, the title of this PDF document is Communist Coercive Methods for Eliciting Individual Compliance. And this is basically from the Biederman Report of 1956. And that name, the Biederman, it's spelled Biderman report, and how it's parallel to the COVID-19 issue. And they actually have like columns where it actually it's like draws actual comparisons and parallels. I'll explain more in the next comment.
I'm actually looking at it right now. I do see that. We'll listen to it. I do want to that's a document we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
The 45 communism.
So yeah, we'll play her next message, and that's actually a really good lead into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm going to read like one, just to give you an idea. The chart of coercion, there's the first section is isolation, deprive individual of social support of his ability to resist, makes individual dependent upon the captor, individual develops an intense concern with self. COVID-19, isolation, social distancing, isolation from loved ones, massive job loss, solitary confinement, semi-isolation, quarantines, containment camps. Chart of coercion, monopolization of perception, fixes all attention upon immediate predicament, frustrates all actions not consistent with compliance, eliminates stimuli competing with those controlled by the captor. I'll explain the monopolization of perception under the COVID-19 parallel in the next comment. Monopolization of perception, restrict movement, create monotony, boredom, prevent gathering, meetings, concerts, sports, dominate all media, the 24/7 censor information. Chart of coercion, induce debility and exhaustion, weakens mental and physical ability to resist. People become worn out by tension and fear. COVID-19, induce debility, forced to stay at home, all media is negative, not permitted to exercise or socialize. That's just to give you an idea, but the name of this particular PDF document, once again, is Communist Coercive Methods for Eliciting Individual Compliance, the Biederman Report of 1956 and COVID-19, and there is 2 columns. One, basically chart of coercion, which is the Biederman Report, and it parallels it with COVID-19.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that was really good. Yeah, me and Spencer both looked that up so we could read. We were reading along with you. But thank you. We'll read into heavily that and might bring it up again in a future show, like we are right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to get to this document. We've been doing this for about an hour and 15 minutes here, and we are going to get into this. This was brought to our attention by Lady B, who just spoke. For those of you guys listening live or recording, it is called the Congressional Record Appendix, pages A34 to A35, titled "Current Communist Goals." It was created by the House. It was made in the House of Representatives on Thursday, January 10th, 1963. So that was in the middle of the Cold War.
For those that are listening, if you want to read along with us or you want to just have this for the future, just look up Congressional Record Appendix, pages A34 to A35, Current Communist Goals. If you just look up something similar to those, a PDF should show, and it has a list of 45 communist goals.
Yep. Essentially, you're just putting this into some like layman's terms. What this document talks about is how to achieve communism through these 45 bullet points. So pretty much like a checklist for communism in the United States, and what is needed to get to there. So it's powerful. Lady B read some of this to us last week. I think we might as well just read all 45 points in this. I kind of want to.
Yeah.
But it was powerful and very shocking. So I'll just read. I'll read to like 22. You want to read the rest after that, Spencer?
Yes, and then we can talk about each one. And the header of this paper, part of it says, this paper is dedicated to the purpose of alerting the public to the dangers of communism in America. So this is talking about communist goals at the time, and many of which still are attempted today, but this is in America. This is not communist goals in Russia or communist goals in China. This is what they are attempting to do in America. So go ahead, Coleson.
Put it blunt. Number 1, U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. U.S. willingness to capitulate and preference to engaging in atomic war. Develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Permit free trade between all nations. What'd you say?
Well, we can run through some of these. So those first 3 kind of all group together.
Yeah. But number 3 is very powerful. It talks about, let's read that again. Develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Pretty much just saying, create the picture in everyone's head that getting rid of guns and pretty much essentially just getting rid of the Second Amendment would be morally a demonstration of moral strength. A demonstration of moral strength to the entire world by the United States. So obviously we know what's happening with that right now. That's being pushed for right now, and one of the reasons why me and Spencer are very pro-gun. But I'll just keep going down this list here. Permit free trade between all nations, regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. Extension of long-term loans to Russia and Soviet satellites. Provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist domination. Grant recognition of Red China, admission of Red China to the UN. Set up East and West Germany as separate states in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the German question by free elections under supervision of the UN. Obviously, East and West Germany no longer exist, but interesting to consider how that was there.
Right.
Prolonged conference to ban atomic tests because the United States has agreed to suspend all tests as long as negotiations are in progress That was essentially talking about the Cold War. So that's obviously over now. Some of these things are still applicable, but just not the exact thing that was happening at the time. Number 10, allow all Soviet satellites individual representation in the United States and the United Nations. Promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one world government with its own independent armed forces. Some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. Sometimes these two centers compete with each other, as they are now doing in the Congo. 12. Resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Do away with all loyalty oaths. Continue giving Russia access to the U.S. Patent Office. Capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. That's a very important one. That's number 15.
Oh,
Capture
yeah.
one or both of the political parties in the United States. I'll give you guys a random guess which party right now in the United States represents communism. You all know, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you already have it. The Democratic Party represents current communist goals in America
Absolutely.
right now.
There are outspoken people who say they are socialist and communist. It's not even like they're hiding it.
Yep, absolutely. Number 16, use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights.
Now,
Get control over.
I'm going to stop you on that one because I know we are kind of reading through these before going over the big ones. But what was a technical decision made a couple decades ago which allowed abortions to become mainstreamed? Roe v. Wade. That was a very technical decision where they took a line from the Constitution and flipped it enough to be able to say that it represented what it really was never intended to represent.
Yes, absolutely. That is a perfect example. Technical things in courts right now is like the staple of American courts. Everything is about making just the smallest little things that really aren't an issue become the reason why something doesn't happen. It's one of the reasons why court cases are so expensive, because people will sit there and bicker for hours and hours, and it costs lots of money about pointless and unimportant things that sometimes have absolutely nothing to do with a court case, and sometimes they argue about these pointless things for a specific reason, such as achieving Roe v. Wade. This next one, number 17, anyone who is reading along with us at this moment or listening to a recording and also reading this, that is, I would say, probably the most important of all of them, just because it represents America's youth.
Oh, yeah.
You want to read that, Spencer?
Sure. Number 17. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. Let me read one part of that again. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda.
Yeah, how many, when I think of those individuals who support communism in this country right now, I would say, you know what, I'm going to say with relative assurance, a majority of them are probably kids in me and Spencer's generation, or even our ages or younger, probably more to be coming, and that is because public schools promote socialism, or maybe they don't straight up promote socialism, but they offer it as a nuanced thing, and essentially it leads to a belief in socialism. They promote that as much as they promote LGBTQ rights.
Oh yeah, it's amazing that schools can teach kids, especially high schools and elementary schools will teach Hitler was bad, fascism was evil, which it is. We're not arguing that it wasn't. But then they will completely skip the even more atrocious and grander atrocities committed by all of the communist countries in existence.
Yeah, absolutely. You almost have to do your own research and know to do your own research that communism was bad. The hundred million plus people that have been murdered by communist governments, all directly, and yeah, and they don't even teach about it. So
Well, and your anecdotal example that you had about your dad who saw these communist college professors is a great example of how this has happened quite a bit already.
yep, absolutely. We'll just keep going here. There's a total of 45. We're on 18 right now. Sorry if this is taking a little too long for some people who are listening, but trust me, it's worth reading and knowing. Number 18, gain control of all student newspapers. Spencer himself is fighting against that one.
You say
19,
that
use student riots to foment public protest against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Infiltrate the press. Yeah, sounds familiar. Infiltrate the press. Control of book review assignments, editorial writing, and policy-making positions. Gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Oh boy, yeah. You guys, anyone who's listening who knows what's what, you guys are probably just as scared reading this document as I am. To anyone who's listening and thinking that I might just be a straight up what's the word for this? Conspiracy theorist. I'm not. This is reading the incredibly blunt and very real threat of communism from the Congressional Record, appendix pages A34 to A35, titled "The Current Communist Goals," published in 1963 by the House of Representatives. Very, very important to, I would say, important to know, and I'm very, very grateful to you, Lady B, if you're still listening, for bringing this to me and Spencer's attention.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll read number 22 and then turn it over to Spencer. Continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms. Wonder if that American communist cell used to be was just another name for Black Lives Matter.
Well, and 23 goes right along with that. Control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. I mean, I can cite countless examples of quote-unquote modern impressionistic or other categories of modern art that is just paint slapped on a canvas called good.
Yeah, the individuals who win positions in talent shows because they walked on stage, threw some art on canvas, and everyone's like, "Yep, he's a god."
Yeah. 24. Eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. 25. Break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. That is a big one. Our culture nowadays, there is not a mainstream blockbuster movie that I can think of that doesn't have some at least light form of obscenity, definitely, and promiscuity in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
26. Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. That doesn't surprise me either. 27.
Nope.
Infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with quote-unquote social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch.
They call it intellectual maturity. I mean, is reliance upon individuals who know nothing.
Yeah, they're relying upon the arm of man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I hear that all the time from people around me in school saying, well, you know, my religion, they don't say it this way, but they essentially say that their religion is people. It's, you know, I'm just nice, so I don't need religion.
Yep.
All right. 28. Eliminate prayer or any phase of religion expression in the schools on the grounds that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. Remember, these goals were published to expose them in 1958. Coincidence? 29. Discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. Wow.
Yeah, if nothing else strikes you, that's got to be super striking. I mean, anybody who's pro gun control, I haven't met anyone yet who also says the Constitution's old fashioned. They use that as a backup, and tons of other groups use it as a backup just because it interferes with their belief against America because they want to be communist or whatever it is. And so, what do they think what is their opposition? Their opposition is the American Constitution.
Yeah. And if you can get the Constitution out of the way, then you can get anything else you want.
Absolutely, yep.
30. Discredit the American founding fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man.
Or
31.
as abusive slave owners like George Washington, who's just a horrible person who never did anything good.
That's right. It's not like he helped found the greatest country in existence.
Which got rid of slavery first.
Yeah. No, we can't say that, Coleson.
Yeah, that's bad.
31. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the grounds that it was only a minor part of the big picture. Give more emphasis to Russian history since the communists took over. Support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agency, welfare programs. We have a government-run welfare program. We have
that is completely centralized.
Yeah, we have all these things that have been pushed more and more towards a centralized government.
Yep.
33. Eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. 34. Eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. 35. Discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. 36. Infiltrate and gain control of more unions. 37. Infiltrate and gain control of big business, such as all of the social media giants, which are now far to the left.
Yeah.
38. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Huh, that sounds pretty familiar. Almost like social workers
that need to go out with cops because they have more power somehow.
Yeah. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders, which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. 39. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. That would, for example, that would be people generally who buy guns. And you hear a lot of arguments that if we were talking about this, red flag laws are set up so that if your doctor or anyone really says, well, that person has depression or, well, that person has anxiety, the government can come and just take your guns before you can appeal before the court to get your guns back.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Tell me about it. 40. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. 41. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influences of parents. 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition. That students and special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, and social problems.
Black Lives Matter. Burn the city down.
That sure sounds like a very good description of BLM, the organization. 43. Overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for self-government. 44. Internationalize the Panama Canal, which did happen. And
Yep.
45. Repeal the colony reservations. The United States cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over domestic problems. Give the World Court jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike.
Okay. Yeah. So that was really involved, very deep, and honestly, very, very, very blunt. I think it was pretty simple to understand. Anyone listening, leave your comments and what you thought of that. We do have one comment right now from Rusty Runner. We go ahead and take that, but leave what you thought of that, because honestly, when Lady B read a couple of those messages to us last week, I was straight up awestruck.
Yeah. This is amazing. We can take that comment and then move into some more specifics about some of these goals.
Yep, and we're gonna have to wrap it up in probably about 25 minutes, guys. So just be aware of that. So get your comments in soon.
Yep.
Sounds like the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, so that's essentially what the document was. It just took the Communist Manifesto and applied how it could be achieved to the United States. So just, putting it in more terms, just applying a specific, for instance, talking about the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, disarmament of the United States' moral strength, things like this that they just related specifically to the United States to emphasize what the manifesto meant for the United States.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and move into some of these goals and kind of talking about them specifically. Anyone, are you surprised by hearing that these are communist goals, or does it sound exactly right to you? Leave comments. We love to hear what you're thinking.
Yep. I think of an important one on there that I forgot to mention or forgot to stop you on was the family. Promotes promiscuity and easy divorce.
Yeah, it's amazing that, and that is 40 on this
40.
communist goals, and combining that with 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. If you look around the United States now, a very large portion of the country and a even bigger proportion of news outlets all say that a family is whatever you want it to be. It can be a man and a woman who are married. It can be a man and a woman who are not married. It can be two men, two women. They can be divorced. They can be promiscuous. They can have multiple partners. It doesn't matter. Anything is a family.
Yep. And any issues with the children, instead of blaming a child for not working hard or for being lazy or anything like that, taking things for granted, which a lot of our generation, me and Spencer's generation does. Instead, it's the parents' fault. Parents didn't do a good enough job. They're somehow responsible for their child's choices and everything. And there's something to be said for parents maybe not raising their kids right, because some parents maybe they just aren't the best. So that's something that happens. But like everything, I don't paint with a broad brush. And there's also a good portion of kids my age, some that I personally know, that are just lazy, who take everything for granted, disrespect and don't honor their parents. And how can I say this? If they were the kid, they would be the kind of kids that I know that if anything were to happen, they would blame it on their parents.
Yeah, and you have a lot of people out there, especially in the news media, which are trying to discredit the family as an institution. As it says, the family, it doesn't matter anymore because it's outdated. It only worked for communities in the past because they were villages and they didn't have, the internet, and they didn't have this, that, the other. Again, as we've said, for those that are Christian, you'll understand this. For those that aren't Christian, just take this as a moral stand. But me and Coleson believe that the nuclear family with a mom and a dad and children, one mom, one dad married, maybe I should say that just to make sure I'm clear, was set up by God as the foundation of society. And when you remove that, as Satan is the symbol for evil, God is the symbol for good. And when you take away what was set up by God to be intended for the benefit of society, society is going to suffer from it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, when you think about put it this way, in terms of the black community, I've talked with Real Talk All Day. I've talked with other individuals. I've seen it in the news outlets and stuff like that. If you want to attribute, I would say probably one of the leading reasons why the black community represents a large majority of violence in the United States, I would chalk it up to two things. One, living in oppressed, impoverished conditions, usually in Democratic run cities. And two, the absence of a nuclear family with a father and with a mother and a father inside of the family there to help the children grow. For instance, the Black Lives Matter founders, co-founders, one of the co-founders, they literally said that they were trained Marxists, which means they were trained to be communism. And as in many are aware, and many still are also unaware, the literally in the mission statement of Black Lives Matter on their website, until they got criticized for it, and so they decided to take it down because they were getting bad PR for it. It literally says the destruction of the nuclear family is part of their goal. So yeah, take that what you will.
It should scare you, or not scare you, but it should really put you on high alert that if an organization very blatantly and openly says that it is there to get rid of the nuclear family, that's something you should be very, very wary of.
Oh yeah, I mean, anyone who openly says that the destruction of the family is their goal, I just look at that and I go, obviously you are not worth 2 cents in the entire world. So communism not worth 2 cents, and the founders of Black Lives Matter, obviously not Black Lives Matter itself, not worth 2 cents.
And there are a bunch of things in here. I know we only have about 15 minutes, so anyone that's listening, leave your comments if you have any. Otherwise, we probably won't be able to get to them. But one of these that we mentioned, but I think is worth going back to look at, is number 11. Promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. And then it continues on, but it's amazing to look at everything that President Trump did. He got he cut a lot of ties with the UN, and he started paying less to them. And when he was doing that, there were some pretty big benefits from it. And if the communists are wanting to promote the UN as the only hope for mankind, I'd say they've done a decent job of it. I think there are a lot of Americans out there who, even conservatives, who look at the UN and say either this is a great organization or say, well, it's not terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like they're like, well, it could be worse, right?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. And that's actually something that they do commonly with communist propaganda, right? They talk about, for instance, the family. Anything that happens with the family, they're like, oh, well, it's not that bad. In fact, actually, that could be a good thing. Oh, your parents are divorced. Oh, your parents your dad got remarried and got divorced again. Oh, and then he got divorced again and again and again and again, because we are the most divorce happy nation in the entire world, that's okay. It's no big deal, right? Just deal with it, right? Because the destruction of the family is
That's
a good
right.
thing. And that's just one example. I mean, for instance, things like your taking away the disarmament of the population, taking away your guns. Oh, you don't need those. No, it's okay. Don't worry about that. Just take it in stride and suck it up. You're gonna lose all your rights. Oh well, you're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah. And I will say, one of the things that amazes me is that people will, in a time of crisis, give up their freedoms for some temporary security. So, for example, if there is a shortage of money or there's an inflation, and the government were, or sorry, let me backtrack. If the government says that mass shootings are on the rise, we're going to put a bill out that will ban guns. And people, even people that maybe have guns, will say, well, there's a crisis going on. I've been told there's a crisis. So, yes, please take my freedom away. And then the guns are taken away. Then who knows? A decade later, or maybe even sooner, the government starts invading people's homes, starts taking away the freedom of speech, and people are saying, "Oh no, how could this have happened?" Well, it's because you were willing to give up that freedom in a time when you shouldn't have. You should never give up your freedom in order for a little bit of temporary security.
Yeah, COVID-19. No,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean we've talked just another one. Talking about the news organizations. We've talked about that one before. How our news organizations are just corrupt beyond the point of no return, and they promote evil communist agendas. And I say the word evil because that's really what it is. And people might say, "Well, come on, what do you, more definition than just the word evil?" But really, evil is what it is. I mean, straight up like satanic. Um, the devil is here, kind of evil, because when you have a situation such as communism and you have even just a small group of individuals who believe in it, it is absolutely evil. One person believing in it, it itself is evil. Um, yeah, evil is just the correct definition of that. I could look up synonyms and I could say it's horrible or 100 different words of synonyms for evil, but evil is basically what communism represents.
Amen.
Yep. Take this last message from Rusty Runner right here, and it is about just shy of 10 minutes till. So, Spencer, what are you thinking about wrapping it up? You want to keep going?
I have, I think, one more point that I want to get through, and then we can wrap up.
All right, sounds great.
Always remember what Benjamin Franklin said. Those who give up liberty for security will have neither.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the reasons why I dislike the Patriot Act. That's why me and Spencer talked about before. Red flag laws, yeah, way bad. You give up individual. Okay, so I've had these people ask me this question before. How I want to give no ground more than what is the current situation in terms of gun control. And they're like, why do you not want to give up anymore? Do you not want to help people who are being hurt, murdered, and things like that? And I said, and here's my response to that, and just take this and change it up and apply it to everything else. The reason why I don't give any ground on gun control is because if I give a little bit of ground, why not give more? It's a slippery slope. Okay,
Yep.
let's say for instance, right
Exactly.
now, they want to have things such as red flag laws, okay? And they mainly talk about that in terms of guns. Let's say I want to give up my right and I want to say let's have red flag laws, okay? By saying let's have red flag laws, well, who's not to say? Well, the government can go ahead and say let's just make red flag laws apply to anything. That person says that you're unfit, you're unstable, and you shouldn't be driving a car, because that's what red flag laws are. Red flag laws are simply just an individual without any justification can report someone to the police or to someone, can report an individual, and just essentially tell an authority that they are unfit to have a firearm, and their guns will be forcibly taken away from them if necessary for 3 weeks or 3 proposed time through Biden's red flag laws, and they will be taken away from them for 3 weeks. At the end of those 3 weeks, the individual can then defend themselves in the court case and try to make it better. Why do I not give that up? Because if they're going to take my ability to have my gun away, who's to say that, oh, well, we don't really like what they're doing with their property. It looks nasty. So we're going to take their property away for 3 weeks. You can go live on the street until you're allowed to have it back. If you're allowed to have it back. Who's to say
The right,
they're not going to be freedom of speech or freedom of press, freedom of religion? What point is it too much, right? At what point have you reached the goal and it doesn't need to go any further? If you're going to have red flag laws, why not just go ahead and ban guns, period? Right? Why not just go ahead and ban guns at all? And it's important to noting, red flag laws, people come up with this because the reason that they came up with red flag laws was the reality of guns is that a vast majority of gun deaths first off, the vast majority of gun deaths are suicide, and second off, including suicide, a vast majority of gun deaths are first-time offenders. For instance, murder, homicide, first time. Obviously, it's the first time someone's committed suicide because they didn't succeed before. So, there's that.
well, and it's amazing because if the government is able to say, well, we can take away your guns for 3 weeks, then that gives them access to everything else, because the right to bear arms is it is top 2 in the Bill of Rights and something that the Constitution protects. So as soon as you say that can be violated, then everything else is on the table, because driving is not a constitutional right. If the government can take away your guns for 3 weeks, why can't it just take away your driving ability forever, even though you haven't, committed a crime related to driving? If they say that you're a danger on the road, whether you are or not, then sorry, your car's just gone.
Yeah, that's just how it works. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much where my thoughts line up. Yeah. And I'm just going to go ahead and close out because I actually think that we just hit the perfect stopping point. Wrapping up about not giving an inch because you end up giving it at all. That's a slippery slope. I'm sorry, Lady B. I do have to go. That's why I'm wrapping up. So I'm not able to take any more comments. But thank you so much for everyone that has left comments today. You guys are the reason why we do the show. But yeah, final statements. Spencer, you want to go first?
Sure. First of all, I really appreciate everyone that's been listening. I know that a majority of Americans either are against communism or are for it, but a lot of people that are for it don't really know what it's about or why it doesn't work, why it's never worked. For those that have joined recently, please go back and watch the beginning of this. Watch this all the way through, because there is a lot of information out there about communism that the media outlets, the schools just do not tell you. And if you don't do your research, communism may sound like a decent thing until you really get into it. Or even not really get into it, but just get into it enough so you realize that the statistics are horrifying. Again, the title of the show is Can Communism Work? And has it? Has it ever? No, it has never. And it never will unless you are able to miraculously make people perfect and naturally good. And Coleson is exactly right. If we do not stand and if we let them take a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, push us a little bit farther away from where we want to stand, then they're going to walk all over us. Wrapping right back to the very beginning, on that article that I was writing, I gave a little bit. I said, okay, I will add your one edit. And the person who wanted that edit in still said no. And so even though I gave that little bit, they are not going to give anything. And so you cannot give anything either. You must continue fighting against communism. Talk about it any chance you get with someone, especially if you get someone who is more on the fence, is legitimately unknowledgeable about communism, and says, well, I guess it's a good thing, I don't know. You need to educate them so that they know that communism is bad. And while its intentions may sound okay, its results are horrible, and its results have ended in the deaths of millions of people. So I just suggest you do your own research, listen to this show, listen to other shows, and make sure that you know what is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you perfectly, Spencer. That sums it up perfectly. I'm gonna leave my closing thoughts by saying I completely agree with Spencer. Listen to that. That's pretty much my words right on my head. I am gonna post the documents that Lady B shared. Lady B shared the document that Lady B shared with us today, and also the one that she shared with us last week about the this is the Communist Points in America, the one we read from today. I'll be posting both of those to my Instagram for anyone who wants to go on and check those out and see them. So just go on there and check those out if you're interested in seeing what they are. But yeah, I think that's all we had to say for today.
All right.
Yeah. So my name's Coleson.
My name is Spencer. We are 18 and American.
And we're signing off. Everyone, thank you for coming on today. I hope you guys will be on next time with comments. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Have a great day.